Good afternoon. My name is Greg Kehoe. I'm the United States Attorney for the Middle District of Florida. I'm joined by the Special Agent in charge of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, Matt Fodor, the IRS Special Agent in charge, Ron Locker, Health and Human Services Acting SAC, Jesus Barranco, and last but not least, the Social Security Administration's SAC, who is Connor Washington. Today, we're here to announce the indictment of Leo Joseph Govoni and John Leo Witek for embezzling more than $100 million from trusts of hundreds of special needs victims. For more than 15 years, starting in 2009 and continuing into 2025, Govoni, Witek, and others designed and implemented and perpetrated a massive fraud scheme to steal critical financial resources from some of our society's most vulnerable victims, the physically and mentally disabled, many of them children. They did so to enrich themselves and others. For these crimes, Govoni and Witek now face federal prosecution and imprisonment. The story begins in 2000 when Govoni opened the Center for Special Needs Trust Administration in St. Petersburg, Florida. Ostensibly, he founded this nonprofit for the purpose of managing special needs trusts. What are special needs trusts? Well, some of these trusts were set up with funds for victims received from lawsuits and settlement awards intended to compensate them for the injuries that had caused their disabilities. Other trusts consisted of money contributed by family members. Whatever the case, the money in the trusts were supposed to be used to help pay for the victims' medical expenses, housing, transportation, and other basic needs over the long term. As of February 2024, the center managed more than 2,100 special needs trusts containing approximately $200 million in assets. Beneficiaries were located throughout Florida and across the United States. What did Govoni promise? Govoni promised that his victims, that he would protect and invest their money, and he would act in their best interests so that when they needed the money, this money that was in the trust would be there for them to pay for those expenses. Instead, Govoni and his co-conspirators embezzled the money entrusted to them and used the money as a slush fund to enrich themselves. For instance, Govoni used his victims' monies to fund his own various business ventures and those of his sons, finance a lavish lifestyle, including trips on private jets, pay for expensive vacations, and purchase real estate. He even made deposits in his own bank account to pay his personal debts. The other defendant, Witek, facilitated Govoni's scheme. Beginning in 2014, Witek served as the accountant for several of Govoni's companies. And in 2017, he and Govoni founded a tax and accounting services company together. Witek's job was to protect the trust beneficiaries by providing accurate financial statements to them on a routine basis. He was supposed to keep track of their money. Instead, he joined the fraud scheme and misled the victims. To cover up the theft on this ongoing scheme, Govoni and Witek sent annual false accounting statements to their victims, promising that their money was in investments when in reality their money was already in Govoni and Witek's pockets and their businesses. They also made further steps to cover up this fraud. When victims whose trusts had been emptied needed money to pay their expenses, the conspirators used new trust funds from other victims, newer victims, to pay those expenses, covering one fraud for another. Not surprisingly, together, Govoni and Witek and the co-conspirators' actions eventually bankrupt the center. And when that happened, Govoni doubled down. To conceal his fraud further, he misled and lied to the bankruptcy trustee and bankruptcy judge in detailing the extent of his assets and has withheld business records from the court. In fact, this fraud scheme was nothing more than a sophisticated scheme to steal money and deceive and defraud the vulnerable victims while doing so. The victims entrusted their money to Govoni, Witek, and the center. They thought it was safe because Govoni and Witek told them it was safe. As I said, they thought that their money would be there to help them pay for medical, housing, and transportation expenses for the rest of their lives because of what Govoni had told them. What they didn't know and couldn't know was that Govoni had other plans. If we turn to the chart that is on my left, it just briefly details what, in fact, they did. Over a period of time, after they turned the money to Govoni for safekeeping, he loaned being the word that they used, $100 million of their money over time to a company he controlled, Boston Financial Group. If you can follow the chronology and the timeline that we have over to my left, this went on over a period of years. In total, Govoni funneled $100 million or over $100 million to Boston Financial Group, and Boston Financial Group funneled this money to Govoni, Witek, and others for miscellaneous business expenses. To the extent that these loans were paid back at all, again, the loans were paid back in part with monies taken from other victims and other trust funds. The money that was sent to the Boston Financial Group, Govoni used, as I noted, as a pass-through to support dozens of other businesses that he ran, including for-profit companies unconnected to the center. And ultimately, he funded the money to himself. In short, the Govoni's victims number in the hundreds, if not the thousands, many of whom suffer from physical and mental disabilities, unfortunately. Others have suffered terrible, life-altering events that left them dependent on trust funds to financially support their care. They put their money into accounts at the center expecting it to be safe. Unfortunately, these folks learned that, if not all, of their money was gone. Now these victims are forced to rely, in large part, on government assistance and others that were assisting them to pay for their basic needs. But also now, Govoni and Witek are going to be held accountable for their crimes. I want to commend the FBI, IRS, Criminal Division, HHS, OIG, and the Social Security Administration, OIG, for working together as a team to develop the evidence that has led to the federal charges in this case. Through their excellent work and partnership, Govoni and Witek have been charged in a 15-count federal indictment. We jointly charged this case with DOJ Criminal Fraud Section and are committed to working with them to ensure that all major frauds like this are prosecuted. The allegations contained in the federal indictment, which I summarized here today, are just that, allegations. The defendants are presumed innocent unless and until proven guilty. The federal charges are serious, and Govoni is facing up to 265 years in jail and Witek 220 years in jail. With the help of our law enforcement partners that you see on this stage, our office is committed to identifying, pursuing, and prosecuting anyone and everyone who commits fraud in our community. And our community expects us to do that. We are committed to make sure that we serve the people of this community and we serve justice in this regard. Our office is committed to seeking justice for the victims and ensure that if convicted, Govoni and Witek are incarcerated for periods of time that reflect the devastating harm that their contact has caused on these innocent victims and continues to cause on these victims. For a moment here, I'm going to turn the podium over to my colleague, Special Agent in Charge, Matthew Fodor of the FBI. Matt?
Thank you, U.S. Attorney Kehoe. Good afternoon. I'm Matt Fodor, Special Agent in Charge of the FBI Tampa Field Office. As you just heard the U.S. Attorney explain, the web of fraud Mr. Govoni is accused of creating was complex and cruel. Center for Special Needs Trust was supposed to invest and protect its clients' money. Instead, it is alleged that Mr. Govoni and conspirators took advantage of nearly 2,000 special needs families here in Florida and from across the country, caring only to invest in themselves with homes and expensive trips. When the FBI learned of this case in 2024, we knew this investigation would be complicated and challenging. But we have the resources, the workforce, the partnerships, and most importantly, the grit to follow the money and expose the deceit. Our case agents and forensic accountants went right to work, tackling a mountain of evidence, a mountain of documents and records from 2009 to present day, examining it all line by line. To give you an idea of the immensity of that task, the forensic accountant told me that one bank account over a 15-year period had 108,000 pages. Multiply that over 150 counts. In addition, in trying to cover up the illegal activity, Mr. Govoni allegedly set up over 100 shell companies. Those financial records continue to be scrutinized. With tenacity, dedication, and our mission in focus to protect the American people and uphold the U.S. Constitution, our team led us to where we are today. I want to thank U.S. Attorney's Office, Health and Human Services Office of Inspector General, IRS Criminal Investigations, and Social Security Administration Office of Inspector General for the partnership in exposing this injustice and the continuing effort to ensure the accused are brought to justice. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Matt. Just one last thing. I just want to emphasize what the extraordinary work that these gentlemen's agencies have brought to bear in working on this case. Matt just highlighted just a little bit of the extensive documentary evidence that had to be sifted through by all these agents that belong to these entities in order to bring this to bear. Frankly, we in the U.S. Attorney's Office could not do this without them, and to that we are eternally grateful. But yes, we'll take some questions. Yes, ma'am. Difficult. That's an impossible thing to say. Certainly, as you know, when the bankruptcy filing was made in April of 2024, this all came to the fore because the people that were running the center outlined exactly what the problem was. That, of course, is the trigger point of this. When documentation is filed before a court for the court to analyze, that was the major kicking off point in this. Yes, sir.
What's the status of the likelihood of other indictments?
Well, what I will tell you as much as I can about that, but I will tell you that the investigation is continuing, and those records and everything that was brought to bear is going to be continued to be analyzed on a daily basis. So the investigation continues, is as much as I can tell you right now. Yes, ma'am.
Leo Govoni's daughter-in-law, Brittany Govoni, is a state prosecutor with the Pinellas County State Attorney's Office. Should she or did she know about the criminal conspiracy that was going on that funded her husband's Big Storm Brewery business?
I can't comment on what an individual witness may or may not say down the line. I can't even comment to you about particular witnesses at this juncture. Again, and I don't mean to not answer the question directly, but we will and have been exhausting all of those evidentiary roads, and we will continue to do so.
Did Leo make contact personally with these individuals, and how did he manage to gain their trust? And were there other people whose job it was to gain their trust, as well as Leo, to have them invest?
Well, I will tell you, Lloyd, that the contact and how this business came about was not just with victims. It was done with, for instance, plaintiffs' lawyers who had, received a significant award in a personal injury case. That's just an example. They would reach out and say, okay, we want to put this in some kind of trust that enables these people to draw on these monies over the long term. So it just wasn't just one way. and it was advertised as such, and so there was a lot of communication in the legal community too.
Govoni contributed to several political funds over the years. State and federal records show. Have any of those people that have been elected been requested to return that money by your office?
I can't comment on that at this point. What any monies will be clawed back, if you will. You do know, I'm sure, that there is a significant effort on the part of the U.S. trustee in bankruptcy court searching some of these documents, and we engage in clawback procedures within the court. That is oftentimes done by the trustee. That's not to say we won't be exploring avenues for restitution and forfeiture, and we continue to do that.
I know you pursued this no matter who the victims were, but as far as this investigation goes, for the investigators themselves, was there any extra emphasis because the victims were disabled or perhaps children who were victimized by this?
Well, Lloyd, I mean, the reality of these special needs trusts is exactly what you outlined. A special needs trust, according to the law, is that you have a disabled person. He or she puts the money in an irrevocable trust. The statute allows you to put it in an irrevocable trust and still obtain Medicaid assistance from the government. So, per se, those people that are disabled and receiving Medicaid are usually the kinds of individuals that are going to be putting their money in an irrevocable trust. And it's important that we get that distinction. This is an irrevocable trust that they just can't go in and ask for money at any point.
When Govoni was taken in this morning, did he say anything?
Well, I can't comment on that right now. Thank you. I just can't.
We know that he had a private jet, that he had executive suite at the Kentucky Derby, so presumably he was spending freely. Is there going to be any sort of additional charges in terms of tax, not paying the IRS what he should have paid them?
And as you can see, there's a representative from IRS CID, and I will tell you that the tax investigation continues as well.
And I also wanted to ask, what month did the FBI actually start an investigation, and where does this compare to other white-collar crime in this region?
When you get into an extensive fraudulent scheme such as this one, it takes a significant period of time, once it's uncovered, to unravel exactly what these people were doing. Was this just a person who's a bad business person, or is this person engaged in a pattern of fraudulent activity? That takes a significant period of time. As Special Agent in Charge Fodor said, just on one account, there were hundreds of thousands of pages in this account. And trust me, there are numerous accounts involved in this. Now, you don't unravel every single one, but you certainly put your eye on the most significant ones, and which is what the agents from these various agencies have doing. This kicked off approximately 2 years ago, and we got to where we are today as a result of that. Is that common for white-collar cases? I've been doing this for a long time, and the answer to that is yes. Unless you're talking about a proactive case where you have some fraudulent activity that's going on right now. Historical fraudulent cases take a significant time to investigate, analyze, and then move ahead with prosecution, such as we did today.
And there's no implication of criticism.
No.
How long it took. You just said something that interests me. 2 years ago, so the investigation began before the Senate filed for Chapter 11?
Well, what I'm saying is that the impetus for moving ahead was was in part, not totally, but in part, the filing of bankruptcy in April of 2024. That was the first time documents are coming across the transom. There are filings by the center's bankruptcy lawyers, which led to where we are today. And of course, got the trustee involved, and the trustee was then going to do, its own investigation. So it was a much different situation post April 2024 when that filing was made. Well, I mean, I'm not going to go into exactly what we were aware of, what we are not aware of. What I'm telling you is the watershed date is the filing of bankruptcy. That's the watershed date that we can peg this from and move forward, because that's when the courts got involved, et cetera.
Is there any oversight in these types of
I'm sorry.
Is there any oversight with these types of accounts?
And an oversight, you mean, what do you mean? Okay, well, you know, any type of nonprofit that I've had my personal experiences, not necessarily this, usually has some type of auditor coming in. But, you know, obviously, fraud can be hidden and can be hidden for a significant period of time. And when you have some type of auditing being done, it depends on what type of auditing takes place. Is it making sure that, you know, you're adding the numbers correctly, or are you getting behind the actual numbers? Those are two different kind of audits under the global umbrella of audits. So it really depends. Yes.
SSI is a state crime. SSI fraud is a state crime. Will that also be prosecuted?
I think you could safely say that if anything that's under the umbrella of these four agencies is a matter that's going to be investigated. And I say, you know, Social Security Administration, the IRS, Health and Human Services, and the Bureau.
Mr. Kehoe, this particular day is a day that victims here in your district, across the country, have long awaited for. Viewers, victims are watching our live stream right now. What's your message to them?
The message is that the grand jury has found that it's probable cause that these two gentlemen, in concert with others, have committed very, very, very serious crimes to the tune of $100 million. They're facing, in Govoni's place, 265 years in jail, Whitech 220 years in jail. That's their answer to them, that we are taking steps to hold them accountable for the damage that they've done to these innocent civilians. That's the answer that they should take forward from this. And I hope that's some comfort to them.
I have a question for Special Agent Fodor. In terms of, like, there are some parallels in this to Madoff in terms of using one client's money to satisfy another. But in terms of like a white-collar investigation, is this one of the biggest cases that you've had in this region?
Well, I'm just finishing up my first year in the seat, so it's one of the biggest I've ever seen, quite frankly, in my career, my 19-year career in the Bureau, so yes.
I can answer that question for someone who's been around for a while.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So I've been doing this. I was here 20 years before I decided to come back. I'm a tough guy to shake off. But yes, I mean, $100 million fraud. $100 million fraud is extremely, extremely large, not only in the Middle District of Florida, but any place in the United States. Yep. I'm sorry?
Any video of the intake or mugshots?
You know, the intake. I mean, I don't think there's ever any video of someone being processed at the Marshal Service. Not that I've ever seen in my career, but and with regard to mugshots, et cetera, I think you should address that question to the Marshal Service at this point. Lloyd, you had?
Can they seize property under the bill or some other statute? Seize property from them?
But we have if you take a look at the indictment, Lloyd, there is the last count is a forfeiture count, which we will attempt to seize anything and everything he has. I'll be quite candid with you, Lloyd. I mean, the trustee has been examining some of that property as well, so it remains to be seen how much is there. Now, I can just tell you that we will continue to explore those avenues to see anything and everything that we can forfeit and not only forfeit but use for restitution. But it remains to be seen.
Has he placed money offshore, in offshore accounts?
Well, I can't tell you. I can't speak about exactly where he's moved his money. We are examining all of his accounts as to where this money has gone. I don't think any investigation that I've been doing since I started doing this 40-something years ago fully gets their arms around everywhere the money goes, but we can do the best we can with the documents we have. And you have to follow the paper. You have to follow the paper, which means you follow the money. Okay.